truth, they're going to do it. They're going to attack the place. Right! They're going to attack the prison! Everyone get to reception quickly!
Why don't you show some brains and call this damn farce off, Edwards?
Because, Mr. Spunky Screw, there's still a few things we want out of all of this.
You're not going to get a damn thing. Except a longer sentence. Some hard times in solitary.
Drop the preaching. And don't get any clever ideas about the door. There's a couple of ladies out there who'd love to get their hands on you.
Ladies? Is that what they call them now?
In your position, I wouldn't call them anything else. Now, why don't you just relax and you and I can work a few things out for ourselves?
Like what?
You know, for a screw, you don't come up too badly. Loosen up a little, you might learn to like it.
Don't come that crap with me, Edwards.
Sandy.
You degrade a man, then lock him up like an animal and expect him to treat it like a pleasant social evening.
Mr. Steve Faulkner, aren't you a real gem? Your whole life is degrading people and locking them up like animals, and now you're complaining?
That's different.
Oh, sure it is. We're women.
You know what I mean.
They're just squeaky clean.
I'm not a prisoner.
And I've got news for you, boy. Now, why don't you just relax and try to pretend I'm a human being? Or maybe you'd like to try it on with a few of my friends.
Do I have a choice?
I just gave it to you.
All right. This is your party. What's next?
Guess.
Bastards, they've broken in!
Give it up the game time, Edwards!
Oh, relax! Kay, who's got a key? No, it's that. What happened? Quick, run into the barricades. I've really got some more. Oh, quick! Quick! Get the legs through the bars. Oh, quick, let's see.
Now get back before Everybody back to Blood Island! Hang on! Right, that's enough. Now in the cell quickly before he gets to the... I was on the way to get you when this lot jumped me. How about Janet? She's all right. She got away.
Are you okay? I'll be fine. I just had a touch too much tear gas.
You better see first aid at the gatehouse.
I just need a bit of fresh air.
All right, suit yourself.
Who is that?
Well, she's one of your officers, isn't she?
I don't think so. You'd better stop her.
Eric, hold her a minute, will you?
What the hell's going on?
Sorry, someone wants a word with you.
Look, I'll talk after I've walked off the effects of that damn tear gas.
I think you'd better speak to your boss first.
Winter. She's one of our prisoners.
Well, it was worth a try.
Come on.
All right, no any more trouble from your lot. The fight's over and you've lost. So if you all keep calm, nobody will get hurt.
Are those weapons really necessary?
Nobody's in any position to make any demands, so just shut up and do as you're told.
Another one for you, Mr. Fletcher.
All right, let's get them to their cells. Winter, Cavelli, Hunt. Officer Radcliffe, you take them to their cells, please. Take one of the officers with you. Come on, Hunter, do you want to be dragged out?
All right, I'm coming.
You got a cool one there, mate.
Who, Winter?
Yeah, now there's an appropriate name for you.
Right, Young, Barry,
You ask
you're
our
next.
friend, Officer
Officer
Faulkner.
Hill, you take the other officer and go with them, please. I think we can handle the rest of them.
I didn't find Janet, but in this shambles, she could be anywhere.
One of the women missing.
Yes, an officer. All right, come on, the rest of you, make it snappy. Shut up in there. I said shut up! God, it's Janet.
Thank God you've come.
It's all right, it's all right. She's safe now.
So what are you bitches staring at?
Hey, easy, easy.
We'll get them to their cells, Mr. Fletcher.
Good, thanks, Steve.
Well, get moving.
Oh, watch it, you stupid ape!
Great, a human at last.
What happened to you?
When?
Well, I haven't seen you since before the police attacked us. And I didn't see you during that.
Yeah, well, I got sprung, not quite into the act of that bloody Faulkner laid one on me. God, if I'd known the bastard could hit like that, I might have given him something to slow him up a bit.
You were missed.
Nice to hear, I suppose. Not much I could do about it, though, once he'd locked me in the cell with my own keys. Oh, God, I don't suppose I could have done anything to stop that mob anyway with their batons and tear gas.
The other women noticed your absence, too. I don't think they were very impressed.
Oh, is that so? Well, that's just too bloody bad. There was supposed to be a couple of them waiting to back me up in the corridor.
Was it worth it?
Depends what you mean. Another 5 minutes and I might have found out what makes Steve Faulkner tick. As for the riot, well, we didn't win a bloody thing there. The screws are going to go on screwing us down tighter than ever.
Sounds like an all-round flop, then. A lot of trouble, people getting hurt, all for nothing.
Well, I reckon I'm going to cop the Guernsey for the riot and everything that went with it. As for the prisoners' rights, well, the few we've got are going to float right out the window. I wouldn't call it a complete flop. At least we tried, that's something.
Is it? You didn't achieve anything.
We tried. At least we showed the bastards we were willing to do that. We did try.
Well, there might be a spare uniform amongst this mess somewhere, but personally, I think you should go home and change there.
I don't want to stay in these clothes. I feel so filthy.
All secured in cells, Mr. Fletcher.
Good, good.
Are you looking for something, Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, a spare uniform for Miss Conway.
Well, we found Winter trying to escape in this one. It mightn't be the right
Anything
size,
would be
but...
better than this. I'm sorry. I just want to get out of them.
Well, it looks as though everything is back under control again.
Yeah, the women are all accounted for and locked away in their cells, but it's going to take us much longer to get this place looking presentable again.
True. Still, it could have been worse. Now, I suggest that something is done about Miss Conway's injuries. That's a dreadful bruise on her face.
I'm all right now.
We'll have it seen to just the same. How did you fare, Mr. Faulkner?
No complaints. These aren't exactly standard issue, but they work just as well.
This must have been how the women were released in the first place. Where did you get them?
Edwards had them.
I see. Well, bring her to me.
Right.
Mr. Fletcher, would you arrange for proper security until we can have new locks installed?
Yeah, well, I've already arranged for some chains and padlocks from store, and I'll arrange the night shift as soon as I've finished here.
Good. Well, if I'm needed, I'll be in what's left of my office. Well, it's not exactly a decent fit, but at least it's a uniform.
Well, you won't be wearing it for long anyway.
Well, why not?
Because you're going straight home.
But there's still stuff to do here tonight.
You're not working here tonight.
I want to.
As soon as I've finished arranging the night shift,
But
I'm
Jim...
taking you straight home, and no arguments.
As you are the obvious leader of this riot, Edwards, I am holding you personally responsible for everything that happened, and I intend to make an example of you. Do you have anything to say for yourself?
So you're holding me responsible. Big deal.
That is the attitude that got you into trouble. I hoped you might have learned something.
We were prepared to talk. Yeah, I learned something.
You could hardly expect us to have our actions dictated by what you were prepared to do. Where did these come from?
You just took them out of your pocket.
Until the visiting justice is prepared to listen to the charges against you, you will be held in solitary confinement.
What about the others? I suppose you're going to go on treating them like animals.
The women who took part in the riot and assaulted my officers can expect to be punished. But I do have the list of requests, and we shall look at the more reasonable ones.
I won't hold my breath.
When we get the necessary cooperation, we are capable of listening to reason and introducing reforms.
You don't give a damned thing you're not made to give, so don't expect anything from us.
I'm not going to argue with you, Edwards. Take her to solitary.
I can take it from here.
Alone again at last.
Just shut up and keep moving, Edwards.
Touchy, aren't we? You know, it's a bloody pity the troops invaded when they did.
What do you mean?
Well, gets a bit frustrating here at times, and you're the nearest thing to a man we've got.
Well, surely you don't think I would have gone through with that.
I know you would have. And so do you.
Don't be stupid. I'm not interested in fringe benefits. I'm just here to do my job and get paid for it.
Come off it, Steve. You're almost as human as I am, so why pretend?
You're a prisoner and I'm a prison officer. And the name is Mr. Faulkner.
Well, I did say almost. Anyway, you're welcome to visit.
I don't believe you, Edwards. After what happened tonight, do you still behave like this?
You mean the brave cavalry charge by the Yahoos in blue? Oh, God, what a mess they must have made.
Whose fault was that?
You tell me. As I told the governor, we were prepared to talk.
You talk too much.
Not when there's better things to do. So think about it. We could always pick up where we left off, you know.
Good night, Edwards.
Sweet dreams.
Morning, Mr. Fletcher.
Morning. Everything under control?
Well, all quiet so far. A peaceful night, in fact.
Good. I could use some peace.
How's Janet Conway?
I think she'll be fine. She'll be in for work soon anyway.
Really? I would have thought she'd have some time off.
Well, I tried to talk her into it, but well, she said she didn't want any. That's what she said last night, in any case. Look, you better assemble all the officers. We better start organising work parties to clean this shambles
Yes,
up.
straight away. Good.
There's a lot to do, so the sooner we get into it, the better.
Right.
Can I ask a favour?
What?
Well, I'm rusted off tomorrow. I'd prefer to work if possible.
Oh, come on, Steve. You've been on for 2 days straight. You need time to rest.
I'm okay, really. If I get a good sleep now, I'll be fit as a mallee bull by tomorrow.
No, I'd rather you didn't.
By the look of things, you could use all the help you can get.
We can handle it. Everything will be under control by this afternoon. Look, Steve, you've been rostered off for a good reason. You're tired. Tired people make mistakes. We've had quite enough of those. Right, you're to carry your batons with you at all times. Is that clear?
Oh, I don't like these things.
It's not a question of liking them. The directive came straight from the department. Besides, there are more of them than there are of us. We need all the help we can get. Which means the first sign of trouble, you're to use them.
Right.
All right? Let's get this section cleared out.
corridor on the double. Move out into the corridor.
Line up against the wall and be quiet about it. Come on, up against the wall, you lot. Quickly now.
What are we going to do, Mary?
Why ask me? I thought Sandy was cock of this hen house. They took her out of the dorm last night.
Shanghai, do you reckon?
No, I did.
It seems to me like she's never around when you need her.
Get quiet down there.
Well, I am.
Window!
Yes, Mr. Fletcher.
Shut up!
That's the lot out of this section, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you. Right, now, there's a bit of cleaning up to do. Since you lot were responsible for the mess, you'll be doing it.
Well, what about breakfast?
You'll speak when you're spoken to, Kent. And you'll be fed when this place is in a fit condition to live in.
It's not fair.
Kent, another word out of you and you'll be on a charge. All right, now 4 of you are assigned to clean the reception centre. Now that's Cavelli, Peterson, Stokes and Winter. Andrews, where are you? You'll clean the governor's office. The rest of you, go straight to the recreation room, all right? Now come on, move it out, quickly now.
Someone looks a bit rough around the edges. Must have had a bad night.
I've had enough of you and your kind, Winter. So just shut your stupid mouth and get on with your work. Just because you belong in a pigsty doesn't mean this place has to resemble one.
Miss Conway, would you mind getting Mr. Fletcher for me, please?
Very well, Mrs. Davidson.
I'll be in my office.
I'll bet you wouldn't mind.
Winter,
Yeah?
stand up when I speak to you. I'm sure you realize that apart from attempted escape, you are facing a number of other charges, to which you may now add insolence. Now get on with your work. That will be all for the moment, thank you, Mrs. Barry.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Davidson. Come on, Andrews, you heard Mrs. Davidson.
This lot's going to take some cleaning up.
Yes, we have more pressing worries at the moment.
What's the problem?
Well, I've just been to a meeting with Ted Douglas and the minister.
Bet that wasn't much fun.
No, it wasn't. The riot gave them such bad publicity, they're now determined to get as much mileage as possible out of the law and order issue.
Just how do they intend to do that?
Well, they're blaming the riot on soft treatment and poor security.
It's crazy.
They also claim that the retaking of the prison is proof that force is the only way to control the prisoners.
Well, I don't entirely disagree under those circumstances. But they're ignoring entirely the cause of the riots in the first place, which was those damn security measures they insisted upon.
Well, now they are insisting on increasing those measures.
Oh, God, that's great, isn't it? We lock them up, we feed them, we work them, stomp on them when they get out of line, and then when one of us is killed, the department's point's proven. Don't they ever learn?
Apparently not. Anyway, we're stuck with it for the moment, so we'll just have to make the best of it, I'm afraid.
I suppose they mentioned the extra staff.
Well, I did mention that we could do with some more experienced officers, but I doubt whether we'll get them. Do you think Miss Conway should be back so soon?
Well, I tried to persuade her to take a day off, but she insisted.
Well, keep an eye on her, would you? She may not be ready to face the women yet.
Line up properly. And no talking or you'll miss out on lunch as well.
Porridge. You can't be serious. Not 2 meals in a row.
Just get your meal and move to your table.
What do they think we are?
I'm not going to eat this muck.
But sure.
Silence.
You destroyed the kitchen stocks. You've only got yourselves to blame.
Not even hot. Cut the talk and move to your tables.
Pig swill.
That's it, Winter. You can starve in solitary.
No, I don't think we ought to let Winter get out of work that easily, Miss Conway. All right, Winter, clean it up. And as for the rest of you, if you want to starve, don't eat.
Go on, get to your tables.
What now, Mary? You're the boss.
I will.
Ease up, Jen.
Yeah, well, you saw what happened.
The tension's bad enough as it is. Believe me, if you push them any further, that last ride's going to look like a kindergarten picnic.
What do you want?
Nothing in particular.
Well, why don't you push off and mind your own business? There's work to be done.
Yes, I can see that.
Listen, don't you get smart with me, Doc.
Is that for the laundry basket?
What do you think?
Do you know the address to send it to?
Look, I've heard Sandy talk about Fitzwater, and I've been around long enough to know what he's all about. I'm not stupid. Do you think he'd be happy to do business with someone like me?
Yes. What are you asking for?
I just want to get the trade moving again. With a little extra twist.
A twist?
Yeah. Now, listen. You being a doctor and everything, how would you feel about the women being able to buy a little extra happiness every now and then?
You mean drugs?
Well, I don't mean lollies.
Could be useful. Useful. Well, we doctors prescribe drugs all the time. People need tranquilizers just to keep their sanity these days. My God, this place is enough to drive anyone insane.
Yeah. So you wouldn't mind a bit of extra medicine coming in every now and then?
Not at all. Could be very useful in the right hands. By the way, Fitzwater prefers to be called Jack.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Oh, this place is still filthy.
I think we've done remarkably well to get the place cleaned up so quickly.
Well, I still think they got up very easily.
I'll face charges.
Charges, is that all?
Yeah, we gave floggings up for Lent, remember?
Very funny.
Look, Janet, we're not the judges and juries. We just make sure they stay in here. If they get too far out of line, we let the law decide what happens to them.
Well, we could send them to solitary and revoke their privileges.
Minor inconveniences for minor infringements.
Your attitude surprises me.
Why?
Well, after what happened to me.
Janet, some of these women are in here for taking their own revenge. We're supposed to be a bit different, I hope.
I suppose, still hard, though.
Of course it is. None of us like it, you know.
No.
Hello? The governorship of Beachmont Youth Remand Centre's coming up for grabs. Applications from suitably qualified senior prison officers are now invited.
Well, surely you're not thinking of applying.
Well, no. I thought I might.
Well, how could you just leave our relationship and go off to the bush like that?
Well, I probably wouldn't get it anyway.
Why not?
Well, the application would have to go through Douglas. I'm not exactly his favourite person, you know.
Well, one thing in our favour is the nature of the police evidence.
Is that crook?
No, Mrs. Birdsworth, it's largely circumstantial.
Is that just because I happen to be there and all that sort of thing?
Yes, partly.
Crikey. There doesn't seem much to convict a person on.
There is a substantial amount of circumstantial evidence. And taken as a whole, it's nonetheless very incriminating.
That's because of the strain I was under. That bloody Gordon breathing down me neck and frightening the daylights out of me. If it hadn't been for him, I'd have been all right.
Now, try to remember that it is not Gordon Humphrey who's on trial.
Bloody ought to be.
Yes, that may be. But it isn't. Now, if you want me to get you acquitted, you'll have to control any outbursts in the courtroom.
Don't you worry, Mr. Oliver. I've been through it lots of times.
Yes, well, I have a trick or two up my sleeve. So if you behave yourself, we may just win this one yet. Off we go, then. Thank you.
Is your name Elizabeth Josephine Birdsworth?
Yes, Your Worship, that's right.
I represent the defendant, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Elizabeth Josephine Birdsworth, you are charged under Section 197 of the Crimes Act that at Flemington on the 21st day of October 1981, you intentionally and without lawful excuse did destroy property belonging to another, to wit a dwelling house situated at 8 Blackwood Drive, by setting fire to such dwelling and did thereby commit arson. Do you understand the charge?
Not exactly, but I think I know what you're getting at.
In simple terms, Mrs. Birdsworth, you are charged with burning someone else's house.
Oh, no, that's not right, Your Worship.
Your Worship, my client understands the nature of the charge and will plead not guilty.
The court will record a plea of not guilty. Is that correct, Mrs. Birdsworth?
Yeah.
Your Worship, not guilty.
Thank you. You may sit down.
Call Senior Detective Russell.
This load's ready to go.
I'll keep an eye on that gate.
Damn security measures.
I wouldn't let them worry me if I was you.
Can't help it. All privilege is suspended. I'm trying to arrange a visit from my solicitor.
What do you want to see one of them sharks for?
It's arranging an appeal for me.
Yeah? Oh, well, if you can't get out one way, I suppose you're welcome to try another. Oh, I doubt if you'll get a visit with this flap on.
I might, if I could see Powell.
Why should she help you?
I think she's taken a fancy to my solicitor.
You're kidding. So you fancy her?
I think I'd employ anyone with that little taste.
No, I suppose not. Oh, well, good luck to you. Just watch it. And make sure this little lot gets out safely.
Don't worry, I will. I just hope there's no trouble about the leadership change, that's all, when Sandy gets out.
It's the women who decide who's top dog, and they voted her out. There better not be any trouble.
I don't think there will be, but I'll talk to her.
Yeah, you do that.
Miss Conway! Clean laundry's ready for the delivery van. Is Mrs. Powell on duty?
What business is that of yours?
It's a personal matter.
Mrs. Powell is giving evidence in court, and I'm quite sure she's got no personal interest in you, so get moving, Peterson.
And when she reached the gate, I saw her drop a bottle of kerosene in the garbage bin. Then she stood looking back at the house for a few seconds.
How long after that did you see the fire?
A couple of minutes.
And do you think the fire was already burning when the defendant was looking at the house?
Objection. He's leading the witness.
Yes, definitely.
Objection sustained.
No further questions, Your Worship.
Just one moment, Mrs. Powell, please. If you don't mind. Thank you. The kerosene bottle you saw the defendant place in her rubbish bin, what identifying marks did it have?
I don't understand.
How are you able to identify it from other kerosene bottles of a similar make and size?
Answer the question, please.
Well, I don't suppose I could if they were the same make and size.
Were you able to see the brand of the bottle as she put it in her bin?
I was there when the police took it out.
And that's when you realized it was a kerosene bottle?
Yes.
In other words, you saw the defendant place a bottle in her rubbish bin, and when the police took it out, you realized it was a kerosene bottle.
I suspected much earlier.
You are on oath, Mrs. Powell. We are not interested in your suspicions or other guesses. You know the defendant, don't you?
Yes.
And you were most upset by the fire next door.
Well, of course I was. It could have spread to my place.
Pity it didn't.
Silence, Mrs. Birdsworth.
See what I mean? Totally irresponsible. How would you like a senile ex-convict living next door to you?
Mrs. Powell, you will not make any further statements regarding the defendant's alleged past character. You may proceed.
Thank you. You didn't like Mrs. Birdsworth living next door to you, did you, Mrs. Powell?
No, I didn't.
But surely you don't dislike her enough to perjure yourself in court? Do you still swear that the bottle you saw was a kerosene bottle?
No, but it's a reasonable assumption.
Naturally, I can understand your concern, Ted. But I'm quite certain we can come to some agreement.
Yes, the department has passed on its instructions, and they will go ahead. That's the first thing we can agree on.
Yes, but I do feel the department should listen to our side of the situation.
All right, then.
I can accept maintaining high security around the prison, even armed guards. But I do feel we should move to relax the internal security.
Oh, Erica, it was made quite clear during the riot that it's not the perimeter that needs watching.
But I'm
the riot was contained from within the prison, because that's where you lost control of the prisoners.
We can achieve far more by dropping this military-style discipline.
No, the minister has made his decision, a very firm one. And it will be carried out to the letter. This is an election year, Erica. Now, you can be sure he's not going to let an unruly mob of criminals shove him out of office.
I don't see
now,
how...
This riot has done a lot of damage. It's caused a lot of unwelcome publicity.
But surely he can see that more repression could cause even more serious trouble.
The only thing he can see is that your administration leaves a great deal to be desired.
Very well. But I am not so sure the staff will stand for it.
Well, any officer who wishes to seek alternative employment is free to do so. In the meantime, they will obey orders.
Could you tell His Worship why you permitted the defendant to stay rent-free in your house?
Well, I thought she deserved a chance, being out in the community after so many years. No harm to go to. Besides, my father would have liked it. He'd shown a lot of sympathy to Mrs. Birdsworth.
And did Mrs. Birdsworth show her gratitude towards your generosity?
Oh, yes, indeed. She abused me right on the front doorstep. Accused me of harassing her.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey.
Who do you think was harassing Mrs. Birdsworth?
Oh, I don't think anyone was. I think it was all in her imagination.
And where were you when Mrs. Birdsworth told you of this harassment?
I've already told you, on the front doorstep.
Ah, yes, the doorstep. I believe we have another witness to substantiate that. What details did the defendant give you of this harassment?
What are you getting at?
That is for this court to decide, Mr. Humphrey. Please just answer the question.
Well, she rambles on a lot. She was very vague, you know. She said things about a pot plant being moved, someone around the house at night, that sort of thing.
I see. And what do you intend to do with the property, Mr. Humphrey?
I think that's my business.
It is the court's business, Mr. Humphrey.
I have no plans for the property.
Is that why you submitted an application to the local council for rezoning to permit the construction of villa units?
Your Worship, this is intolerable. I'm the one being put on trial now.
You miserable bastard! Trying to drive me crazy so you could tear down Sid's lovely house. You mongrel!
Mrs. Birdsworth.
Well, he is. Look at him. Trying to drive poor old women crazy so that he can make a quib. He ought to be the one that's locked away.
Please.
Well...
Sit down, Mrs. Birdsworth.
I was right. And I'm glad you didn't get your rotten paws on Sid's house.
It's getting rather late. I propose adjourning for the day. Mr. Oliver, you will please instruct your client in the correct call for my court.
I shall, Your Worship.
Mr. Fletcher. Now, I'll expect your full cooperation when the security measures are implemented.
Yes, of course.
Mrs. Davidson has the full details?
Yes, Mr. Douglas. I noticed that the applications are open for the governorship of Beachmont.
I'm glad somebody reads the Gazette.
I was considering applying.
And?
Well, I was wondering if you'd think it's worth my while.
Well, it's hardly my place to advise you on anything like that. Well, all applications will be judged individually on their merit. And with your position on record, of course it's worth your while.
Well, thank you.
Some of your work has shown a distinct improvement of late. And besides, it is only a youth remand centre.
Thanks very much. Ah, Lizzie, stand over there.
Yeah, I know.
How'd you go today?
Oh, good. I don't know, Mr. Fletcher. I couldn't keep my big mouth shut when I should have.
Oh, never mind. It's not over yet, you know.
Do you reckon? I've got an awful feeling it's all over by the shouting.
Ah, Officer Powell, would you and Officer Ward take Lizzie back to her cell, please?
Come on, Birdsworth.
Mrs. Powell, may I speak to you, please?
What do you want?
I want to arrange a visit. May I make my weekly phone call, please?
No, you may not.
But regulations allow us one phone call each week.
As a privilege. Since all privileges have been cancelled, even for you, the answer's still no.
But you could arrange the visit.
How many times do you have to be told?
I have to see my little boy, please. I'm desperate.
Sorry, forget it, Peterson. Soft soap won't wash on me. Come on, inside.
Bloody old po-face. Fancy stopping a mother from seeing her own kid. Poor little nipper. Only 3. He's not much of a security risk.
No. They don't seem very human, do they?
Huh. Especially that bloody pal. You should have seen the way she carried on in court today. Trying to have a go at me. But my barrister soon put her in her place.
How's the trial going?
Oh, I don't know. You need some sort of a degree to understand all that legal mumbo-jumbo. I should get off. But I reckon I might have mucked up my chances now. What's been happening around here?
Oh, Sandy's getting most of the blame for the riot. She's in solitary. They took her out last night.
Yeah, I like that, the rotten buggers. She's not a bad kid, that little Sandy. She looks out for her friends. Still, I'm not surprised.
Lizzie, you've been here a long time. Tell me, what do you think will happen now?
Oh, I reckon it'll get worse before it gets better. They'll probably wait till somebody gets killed before they do anything. God, I remember when Bea was running this place. She didn't let the screws get away with much then. Poor old Bea. She could be dead and none of us would be any the wiser.
And how are we tonight?
We are well and truly bloody bored. The only exciting thing that ever happens around here is when some young doctor looks at my scar and nods a lot.
You need the rest.
I'm gonna need a brain transplant. Hey, have you heard any more about Wentworth? There's been no mention since the cops raided the place, not even on the radio.
Yeah, there's not much in the paper either.
Terrific. Well, I suppose I can always amuse myself with the fashion pages and try and work out what's going to be all the rage and the cam this year. Lord, listen to me. Anyone, I think I like the place.
What's it like in there?
Well, Wentworth?
Yeah.
Not much better than this dump. Boredom's the biggest problem. But at least in there you got some chance of getting away with something. Not like in here, you can't even sneeze out of turn.
It's not that bad.
Well, not for you, maybe. But I've got Laughing Girl over there in the doorway for company. Now, she's quite a conversationalist. Can get a rise out of her with a rocket. Good eye, Mrs. Plod. See what I mean?
Never mind. The doctors are quite pleased with you.
Oh, I got a gold star for good behaviour, did I?
Well, it looks like you might be going home in a couple of days.
Oh, home? Yeah, well... At least I'd be able to find out what's going on for myself, won't I?
Right. Janet, what are you doing here this time of night?
Well, I can't sleep, Jim. I'm still having nightmares.
How could you be having nightmares if you're not asleep?
You know what I mean.
Sorry.
Well, do I have to stand out here all night?
Of course. Come in.
I will try to be brief, Your Worship. First, we have the question of motive, which my learned colleague has skimmed briefly over, perhaps because he could find none. I certainly couldn't. Quite the reverse. We have heard of possible motives for both the complainant and the neighbour, Mrs. Powell, both witnesses for the prosecution.
Objection.
I won't pursue the point, Your Worship.
Proceed, Mr. Oliver.
We also have the corroborating evidence of Mrs. Morris, suggesting the presence of a person or persons in the vicinity of the house at the time.
I must object, Your Worship. My learned colleague is referring to hearsay evidence.
I believe I ruled accordingly during the evidence of Mrs. Morris.
Quite right, Your Worship. I stand corrected. But I did say suggesting the presence of persons at all hours.
Mr. Oliver, I will not be trifled with. so please refrain from trying to sneak your dubious points past my rulings.
My apologies. I will now come to the heart of my client's defense.
I'm very pleased to hear it.
The defendant is charged with arson of a house purportedly belonging to the complainant, Mr. Gordon Humphreys. Yet the prosecution has failed to establish the most basic point of proof for this charge. This court has been told the house was the property of Mr. Gordon Humphrey. We have his sworn testimony to this fact. Yet the current title on file is in the name of one Mr. Sidney Humphrey. And while his will is yet to be probated, it bequeathed the property to the defendant.
Mr. Oliver, it's my understanding that the defendant granted a lien on the property. Are you saying that the house belonged to the defendant at the time of the fire?
In effect, Your Worship, although I admit there is some question. But while this court may not be in a position to formally decide the complex question of ownership in this case, it is clear that the onus is on the prosecution to establish irrevocable proof, which they have failed to do.
Do you have any documentation to support your unusual claim?
I have, Your Worship.
Does anyone know what's going on?
Keep working. I don't need an audience. Right, we can sort that lot out for the washer. Bingo.
Is everything all right?
Cash this time, happy pills the next. Everything's just fine.
Good.
Yeah, well, I haven't forgotten I owe you for helping out with this, Doc.
Fine. Just remember I'm a negotiator, not one of your frontline troops.
I'm not stupid, Doc. Here's your cut.
Thanks.
No, I don't want any talking about this. Just stash it away somewhere and keep quiet. I don't reckon Sandy's earned her share of this lot.
And what's going on here?
We were just having a smoke up.
All extra privileges cancelled, remember? Come on, get on with your work. Hand them over.
They're mine.
Arguing with me, Winter?
Of course not, Mrs. Powell.
Well, there are more of you in here than are needed for the work. Yes, Peterson, you can go on cleaning duties for the rest of the day. But cleaning duties? All right, I'm going. Thank you, ladies. Work.
Your visitors here. Inspector Grace?
Well, who else were you expecting?
Does the prosecution have any additional evidence to enter in the matter of ownership?
Nothing of substance, Your Worship. Although I understand the complainant wishes to contest the will of his father.
Has any action been filed?
Not yet, Your Worship.
But it will be immediately, Your Worship.
Then I suggest you do so. Stop wasting this court's time. Mr. Oliver?
Yes, Your Worship.
This really is a quite extraordinary situation you've placed us in. There's a lot of conflicting evidence about ownership, which should have been cleared up by the prosecution before coming to this court. But the weight is quite clearly in favor of the defendant at the time of the fire. Consequently, I find myself in the situation of being unable to proceed with this case. I therefore have no option but to dismiss the charge. You may go, Mrs. Birdsworth.
What do you mean?
The charge against you has been dismissed.
You mean I got off?
Yes,
You bloody ripper! Ooh.
quite.
He used to give me roses. I wish he could again. But that was on the outside, and things were different then. On the inside, the sun still shines, and the rain falls down. But the sun and rain are prisoners too when morning comes around. Last night I dreamed we were together, sharing all the love we'd known, till I had